I I'm actually gonna defend to a degree, because nobody should be spewing out bullshit or angry
Just
commentary.
a rage bait,
Yeah, rage
anger.
bait, kind of
Oh
grifting
man,
shit.
I've seen so much.
Um,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna defend the Snyder Bros. Um, because what they asked for was quality writing.
Oh yeah.
They got it from, and they were stuck on Man of Steel as being the template of a good movie, a successful movie for DC. But we all recognize that the fans wanted a Batman film before Batman and Superman. Batman and Superman was a studio decision that was put on Snyder, and
Yeah.
that's why we continued on the path of a dark series. Because again, Warner Brothers, I put the impetus on Warner Brothers. Big shocker, the studio telling the creative, the director, the writer, hey, we need something as similar to the Dark Knight franchise. We understand we have hundreds of IP, hundreds of characters,
Yeah.
but we want to just brush them all in the Dark Knight. So I can't blame the Snyder Bros for wanting to keep on with Henry
Hmm.
Cavill, because they knew that there was more to be offered, and the discourse from the studio heads at the time. There is a reason why Discovery merged with Warner Brother in the end. It was because the studio was terrible at their PR. They had Snyder, or they gave the green light eventually
Hmm.
through social media discourse to green light Snyder's director's cut, right, which was like a 4 hour film, which is
Yeah.
perfect in
About
my
that cut.
opinion. But but at the same time, you have the heads of Warner Brothers then releasing the film on Max,
Yeah.
and then disrespecting the fans. Now you're gonna have people that
What do you
are
mean
angry.
by release disrespecting the fans for the Justice League
So
Snyder
I,
Cut?
I think I think a day or two after the film was put on Max,
Hmm.
I don't remember her name. I'm pretty sure she was president of the film side. I wish I remember the name. Um, but she did put out in like a press release, um, kind of, I guess, her interpretation of a clapback, um, trying to say that this is a one time thing, and this will, in so many words, this will never happen again, and be grateful you got it at all. That
Hmm.
that would piss anyone off, even someone who's like, I'm actually happy we got this. I'd love for this to continue. To then have that follow up with, listen, you little shit, you finally got what you want, now shut the fuck up. Um,
Yeah, because we're ready to move
it's
on.
you're
We're
you're
starting
gonna
something
you're
different.
gonna create the environment that you ask for. And it's kind of unfair, because that's what James Gunn was then thrusted into, right?
Right.
So yeah, I hope his, to wrap it up, because I've been talking. Uh, I hope his franchise does well.
Hmm.
I hope that um, the fans, it's not Snyder Bros, it's fans that love and appreciate art, or that meme of Martin Scorsese, like absolute cinema,
Right.
right? I hope they get what they're asking for, but also allow the writers to be creative, and go
Oh
back to
yeah.
what DC is all about. It's different genres within a comic book series. I don't want Dark Knight in all of my films. If I get another Batman, I'm happy Matt Reeves has his film coming out. I'm happy James
Yeah,
Gunn
we'll
wants
get
to do
into
a
that too.
Batman movie. But if I get another fucking Batman movie in another year, in one more year, on top of four more Batman somethings,
Right. Right.
I'm gonna know exactly what the studio's all
Well,
about.
we'll get into that. So yeah, when I refer to the Snyder Bros, I refer to this smaller group of people who have put online that they hope that they can make
Yeah,
sure ticket sales don't happen for
yeah,
Superman.
yeah,
That was happened weeks before, and
yeah,
it was purely intentional of
yeah,
like, hey,
yeah.
we're going to do this massive campaign to make
Mm-hmm.
sure no one goes to see the Superman movie,
Mm-hmm.
that they tickets don't buy sales. So that's what I mean by those type of
And
individuals.
that's pride talking.
Obviously, there is a lot of passionate
Yeah.
fans. I consider myself one of them. I
Yeah.
consider myself very disappointed in what's been constantly happening. And to go back to what was going on with Batman vs Superman, you mentioned Batman vs Superman. Yeah, that was not the intent. That was not the intent to have Batman in that film. In fact, I think
It was supposed to be a Man of Steel 2.
it was supposed to be Man
and
of
the
Steel
studio
2,
told him
and I
no.
think it was supposed to be Brainiac as the
Yep.
villain. And they saw what was going on with the Avengers and Avengers Civil War coming out as well. I believe it was Civil War, or
Can you
maybe
imagine Bryan Cranston as a Brainiac?
I thought Bryan Cranston was supposed to be in talks to be Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
And that's because he was
Heisenberg-
Walter White, and so they had the
Heisenberg got
Heisenberg.
it instead.
That was something that people were actually excited about because of the grittiness of Man of Steel and the demand for something serious and something that Bryan Cranston could bring Lex Luthor in this serious, darker tone. Obviously, that didn't happen. We had Jesse Eisenberg. Say what you will about that. Overall, I do love the Snyder films. I can watch them, Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman Extended Edition, and I can watch his Snyder cut. Obviously, he was hit with tragedy, and he had to pull away from the film. There's a lot of
God bless his
background.
family.
Yeah, there was a lot of background, stuff going on with the studios who were panicking. They really wanted to get this new Justice League on board, and it just cratered and fell apart, left and right. And so James Gunn was given a tumultuous task of taking on this new helm and basically reconstructing it from scratch.
Yeah.
I know also there was some, I don't have this written down here for us to talk about, but yeah, there was Henry Cavill returning, right? We had The Rock with Black Adam, and James Gunn also mentioned this in a recent interview with Josh Horowitz, who was a fantastic interviewer, by the way. He's great. It's kind of amazing watching him grow from a small YouTube channel to being a real reporter for most of these Hollywood, press junkets. But yeah, he just did a interview with James Gunn, and James Gunn was kind of talking about behind the scenes of what happened when he signed on and what the studios or perhaps even The Rock was kind of pushing to get Henry Cavill back for his
Hierarchy
own
of
personal.
power was the-
Yeah,
You know,
motto.
so we were dealing with trying to figure out if we could take the job at DC Studios.
Yeah.
And we're talking to David Zaslav and all the legal people there and figuring out what our deals would be. And the day our deal closed, all of a sudden they were announcing that, that Henry was back. And I'm like, what is going on? We know what the plan is. Like we know what the plan is. The plan was to come in and do Superman.
Yeah.
So it was really unfair to him, and it was a total bummer. But there was a vacuum at the time, and a lot of people were trying to be as
Diplomatic as possible.
diplomatic as possible.
There were other people that had a take on what they wanted to do with it.
They wanted to take on what they wanted to do with DC and were trying to force their way, and it just was never a part of the equation for David Zaslav, who was the head of WBD.
Yeah, he said there was people who had, certain power aspects or certain, wishes that they wanted to push for to be at the top and push their own projects, their own money needs. So he had to have that sit down with Henry Cavill, which luckily he said, you know what, we had to have the respect of who Henry Cavill was, and we invited him in, and we sat down with him, and we had to tell him. And he was, I think everyone has seen that post from Henry Cavill and how gracious he was, how tremendously gracious he was.
That's how you handle.
That's how you handle
PR.
Yeah.
That tells you the difference between. Again, this is why I go back to. I can't. Having a quote unquote hate campaign to make sure something fails, that's shitty. That's not done in good faith. That is absolutely done out of pride. And that's done. I mean, nobody does something wicked or wrong out of thin air, right?
No.
Unless you're the devil from The Omen. That's a whole nother story. That whole campaign is done out of pride. It's out of hurt. It's out of feeling disrespected, and that is directed at the top. It may be different management, but it is a continuing, a lingering feeling of disrespect and feeling like they're not being listened to. That being said, I'm glad the movie did well.
Superman 2025.
Yeah. For as long as I can remember, and I'm pretty old now, I've been a Superman fan um, for the
Since we
very
were
reasons
kids.
why this movie, for the very reason why this movie did well. It sold its film on a message of hope,
Yes.
an adventure, right? Of
Yeah.
family, of trial, of the hero's journey, as if you will.
Yeah.
Which there's plenty more comic lore to draw from for Superman. That
Oh, there's so many avenues to go down.
That billionaire Bruce Wayne, it's just different. So we'll see how the film does with its sequel.